Hello, my name is Steve McKenzie. I'm president of M3 Corporation. M3 Corporation's primary focus is in the development and teaching of federal government acquisition courses. In this video, I will introduce you to the 3 phases of federal government acquisition. The 3 phases are 1. Pre-solicitation process, 2. The solicitation award phase, and 3. The post-award phase. Okay, let's get started. In the first phase of the acquisition process, we have pre-solicitation. In the pre-solicitation phase, we're going to have to identify what our requirement is. And this will be all part of your purchase request that you are going to be sending to either the purchase card holder or the contracting officer, the buyer. As part of this requirement, we need to identify what that requirement is, what it has to do, what is the output that it must perform. Now, under services, we would identify the characteristics of the service that's going to be performed. What is the output? What is the overall objective that we have the contractor performing? In a requirement, if for services, we would have a statement of work. And before you do your statement of work, we really should do a work breakdown structure. In a work breakdown structure, it's a graphic representation of what it is we want the contractor to do. It may be any type of service, admin support, technical support, any number of different things that we, the government, contract out for services. And so my example is we are contracting out for security. And in my example, we're not talking about communications security. We're strictly talking about physical security of the building. It may be we'd have to have a person that actually stands at the entrance ensuring that the people have the proper identification before they come in. And then we would have individuals throughout the building that would be providing some roving security. They also have to have administrative personnel, management, all types of individuals that would be part of this security. Now, breaking this work breakdown structure into elements that we can assure that the contractor understands what it is that they're supposed to do. I'm arbitrarily, and this is normally how we would break down the requirements, but I'm breaking it down into 4 elements. The first one being people. The contractor would have to have some amount of people performing different functions. In addition to that, they would have to have some amount of equipment, the types of equipment that they would have to have in order to do their job. Certainly communication devices to be able to talk to each other. They also have to have some administrative support. Administration is billing to just making out records and reports, that all of the administrative functions that would be not performed by these people actually doing the guard duties, but doing administrative functions. And then the last area that I'm breaking it down into is management. And a company always has to have some amount of management. Management can be very important for a contractor, for the government to know that the contractor has management that understands what it is that the government requires. In addition to this, we're going to have evaluation of the contractor's past performance. Past performance is always an evaluation for every acquisition that the government makes over $100,000 for the Department of Defense, $1 million for most other federal government agencies. But past performance always must be an evaluation factor. These evaluation factors are identified in the solicitation that the government sends out to a contractor. The government is required to identify the proposal evaluation factors and the relative importance of each one of these proposal evaluation factors so that the contractor, when they are submitting their proposal, will tell us how they're going to do the job. What are the most important things? In this area, I'm going to apply specific percentages to each one of these evaluation functions. I believe management is the most important evaluation function that we have, and I'm going to provide it with 50% of the overall evaluation of this contractor's proposal. In addition to that, I'm going to identify that people are 25% of the overall evaluation, admin being 15%, and equipment being 10%. Now that always adds up to 100%, which I did not provide any weight to past performance, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. We've told the contractor in Section M of the solicitation that we're contracting out for security, that their proposal needs to be broken down into 4 sections, and we've told them the relative importance of each one of these sections that we're going to evaluate. In addition to these 4 sections, we can develop that into more depth for our own benefit. We could identify how many people we think the contractor should have to perform security and the certifications that they would be required to have. The past performance, the experience of these individuals. So past performance may be caught more than one time in people and in the contractor themselves and in management. So there are a number of times that past performance comes into play here. With this information, we're going to then write our statement of work. We try to let the contractor tell us how they're going to perform the function. We tell them the function that has to be performed. With this statement of work, we have identified the functions that the contractor is performing and the level that they have to perform at. Now, in evaluating a contractor's proposal, we have proposal evaluation factors, which I had just identified. So now we have critical evaluation factors for the proposal. The critical evaluation factors that I used were people, equipment, administration, and management, and past performance. And the contractor then would tell us what their experience is and how they would be performing in each one of those areas. In addition to that, in the solicitation, we should tell the contractor that we're going to have performance evaluation factors. These are the standards that we're going to measure the contractor's performance against. How can you tell a contractor that they're not doing a good job unless you have something that we're measuring performance against? There has to be something that says this is acceptable performance and this is unacceptable performance. So we need to have some standards. In our solicitation, we tell the contractors up front because it's only fair. And the tighter we place these standards, the more it's going to cost the government, because it costs the contractor more money in order to meet higher standards. What are the minimum standards that we can live with? Well, the user, the customer, is the ones that are going to have to make the determination on what standard we can live with. The government always does some amount of market research. Market research is just finding out what's out there. Is there a contractor that has the capability of doing what it is that we want done? We also have identified in our requirements risk management. What are the risks associated with the contract that we have? Now we're looking at this, we're in pre-solicitation. This is before we ever buy anything. We're identifying how much are we going to pay for it, how long are we going to keep it, how long do we expect this to be useful to us. So these are all things that we should be considering during pre-solicitation. Who does this? Normally it would be the user, the customer, the program manager, the project officer. If there are quality assurance individuals that would be monitoring contractors after award, they should be involved with this. And hopefully we can get the contracting office involved here also. The next phase of the acquisition process is the solicitation award phase. Now that the user, the customer, the program manager has put together the requirements package, they're going to send this to the contracting officer, the buyer, the person that has the authority to obligate the government. Now we're sending out a solicitation. Now I use the term solicitation because it applies to request for proposal, invitation for bid, request for quotes, request for information, all types of vehicles that we use when we are contracting out. So we send this solicitation to the general public. The contractor receives this solicitation and they send their proposal in on how they're going to satisfy this requirement. The proposal could be in the form of a quote, a bid, or a formal proposal on how they're going to perform the function. The contractor's proposal then is evaluated by the government. We evaluate each one of the contractor's proposals to determine which best meets our requirements. In formal contracting procedures, we would use formal source selection process. The source selection authority is the person that's given one-time authority to award this contract, determine which contractor is best going to meet our requirements and make that award to them. The Source Selection Advisory Council, if the source selection authority determines that they want to have individuals help them in the determination of which contractor to award to, they can select an advisory council for that purpose. They would also have a source selection evaluation board made up of technical individuals that would evaluate each one of the contractor's proposals against the evaluation factors that we've identified in the solicitation. In this case, I have people, equipment, facilities, management, past performance, and cost that we're using as our evaluation factors. The contractor's proposal, and in this case, I have 5 contractors that have proposed against this requirement. Each one of those contractors are evaluated in the areas that I identified, being people, equipment, in this case facilities, and management. And I put the same percentages on these so that we could keep constants here. And as a subtotal, they have, this is the grade that that contractor has received. I mentioned that I didn't give past performance actually a weight, because we normally would put past performance on the right-hand side of the subtotal. Now, what does that do to the value of past performance? It increases that value because now it is equal in weight to the other evaluation factors. And so past performance becomes an extremely important factor in the overall evaluation of who we're going to make the award to. We've evaluated the contractor's proposals, and now we're going to hold discussions to assure that they understand what our requirements are, that we understand their proposal, and there aren't ambiguities. As I mentioned before, we want to make sure that everybody understands. We have a meeting of the minds, and we make our award. Once we've awarded the contract, now we get into contract administration, post-award contracting. In large dollar complex type contracts, we may need to have a meeting with the contractor. No matter what the dollar threshold, if it's complex and the contractor and the government need to get together on just how the work is going to be performed, how is the contractor going to get into the facility, when are they going to do the job, are we going to allow them specific times. So we may need to have a conference between the government and the contractor. So we might need a post-award conference to work out those details. It could be just by telephone to identify with the contractor so that we both know when the work's going to be done, how the work's going to be done. But as in larger dollar contracts, it may need to be more of a formalized conference. As part of the post-award, there's going to be possibly changes to the contract over its lifetime. And we do this through modifications. In major contracting, we're going to have disputes between the government and the contractor. Hopefully, we will not have any disputes, and both the government and the contractor are very happy with what it is that the requirement is, contractor performs, and the government receives the benefit, and we're happy. But a dispute is nothing more than a disagreement in what the contractor feels they're supposed to be doing, and the government feels that the contractor is supposed to do. This dispute needs to be adjudicated, needs to be handled in a legal manner that is satisfactory to both the government and the contractor. Disputes hopefully can be handled at a very low level. It's usually certainly a misunderstanding. It's a disagreement. And if we can make the disagreement go away, we will. If it becomes a formal disagreement, it may have to go to a Board of Contract Appeals above the contracting officer to make a determination how to resolve the dispute, which then would require a modification and a change to the contract. Oversight of contractors, or contractor oversight. How much contract oversight is necessary? Hopefully none. Contractor knows what they're supposed to be doing. Contractor performs. The government's happy. We all are very satisfied with the outcome. But sometimes we have to have oversight to assure that the contractor is doing all of the things that we want them to do. Determination of contract oversight is usually determined by the contracting officer, the customer, and the user, assuring that the contractor is doing everything that they're supposed to do. Hopefully we'll have contract closeout. The contractor completes the job, we pay them for the job, and everybody's happy. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and we have to actually terminate contracts. If we have termination for convenience, the government always has the right to terminate a contract because we don't need it any longer and pay the contractor for the work that they have done. Now, we also have termination for default, where the contractor is not in compliance with all of the terms and conditions of the contract, and we may then have to default the contractor for their work and would not pay them for any work that was unacceptable, but the contract would be terminated. Now, this has been a very short understanding of the three phases of the contracting process for the government, from pre-solicitation, solicitation award, to post-award.